Hey guys, it's been a minute since I made a rambling rant video, whatever, on one of these types of videos. As you probably know, I don't really force myself to make videos unless it's something I actually want to talk about. So it's been a little while since there's been any news that I really wanted to talk about, but I did say many, many times on stream when I was playing Dragon Age Veilguard that once we got official numbers on the sales of Dragon Age Veilguard, I would want to talk about it because obviously this is a very hot button topic. Uh, Everybody was calling this a game a failure before it ever came out, and somehow a lot of people got under the impression that I was like a Dragon Age Veilguard defender or something. Whereas if you watched my review, then you would know it's absolutely not the case. Did I enjoy the game more than I thought I would? Yes, absolutely, especially with how terrible everybody was saying it was. But ultimately, in my review, I only gave the game like a 7 out of 10. And I said that it was very heavily carried by its build crafting and its combat. I really enjoyed the combat of the game. Well, now we officially have numbers, kind of. And so I wanted to talk about it. In case you haven't seen, there was essentially like a leaked investor meeting with EA, and they said, to not many people's surprise, Dragon Age Veilguard significantly underperformed. They said that 1.5 million people engaged, keep note of that word, with Dragon Age Veilguard, and they expected 3 million people. So there's a couple things with this. One, a game of this size to only have a benchmark of 3 million is a little bit weird for EA. And the reason for that is because if we go back just a couple years now to the release of Dead Space Remake, which was a phenomenal remake, everybody that played it enjoyed it. All the Dead Space fans, like myself, really liked it. A lot of people that it was their first Dead Space game, they really enjoyed it as well. Game pretty universally positively acclaimed. That was considered a failure because they had a goal of 5 million copies to be sold. They actually said sold in that situation. So they considered that to be a failure. I think it was around 3 million. And they considered it a failure to be 5 million. So having a goal for Dragon Age Veilguard of only 3 million, I'm going to be honest, I think that's bullshit. I think they're trying to make it seem not as bad as it is because I just don't really see how that's possible when you have an IP as large as Dragon Age. Yeah, it's been a decade, since Inquisition, but I just don't really think that was their actual goal. I don't think 3 million was their actual goal. I think they're saying that to their investors to try and make it seem not as bad. And then the second part of it is the word engaged. Now, they're saying that 1.5 million people engaged in the game instead of, people who purchased the game. And the reason that that's especially weird is just because typically, especially in these investor meetings, like they're very careful about their use of diction. And this seems entirely intentional instead of saying sold, which leads me to believe that they're also counting the number of people that refunded the game. That's the only reason I can really think that they would include the word engaged instead of the word sold. And as we know from like very early insider reports, it was actually a pretty big story that Dragon Age Veilguard was seeing insane numbers for refunds. Like the game, I think the game had hit 90,000, or maybe it had just cracked 100,000 players on Steam, and then shortly thereafter, it was middling down to like 15,000, and the reports said that there was, I believe, around 5,000 refunds, which is an insane amount, by the way. In case anybody that is watching this and you don't know, a refund on Steam is incredibly bad for the developer. It's really, really bad for the developer because not only does it look like a a failed sale. But I believe they're also out some of the money from Steam, like in terms of like some of the money that Steam had taken. I remember watching a video on it a long time ago from a game dev talking about how terrible refunds are for the dev team. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong there, but I definitely remember the dev talking about just how awful it is for somebody to refund a game, how it's like infinitely worse for somebody to buy your game and then refund it versus just not buying your game at all. So yeah, seeing like 65,000 people refund Dragon Age Veilguard was certainly really, really bad for them. And I think they're probably also counting people such as myself. Like, I didn't buy Dragon Age Veilguard, and I'm very upfront about this. For any Ubisoft or EA game, I'm not buying that shit. Like, even Dead Space Remake, I'm a massive Dead Space fan. Even Dead Space Remake, I didn't buy initially. I always play their games with their little subscription service. So with EA, I always just use EA Play. And EA Play comes with Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you get EA Play anyway. So most of the time, you can just use that. Sometimes you have to upgrade like an extra like couple bucks for EA Play Pro, which is what I did for Dragon Age Veilguard. So, you know, all in all, it's like just a few extra bucks on top of your Game Pass. I think it comes out to like $15 or $18 total that you're paying in order to play these games, which is obviously much better than paying 70 in my opinion, especially if you can just beat the game in 1 month. You got to play the entire game for 15, 18 bucks, you know? And I do the same thing with Ubisoft, with their Ubisoft Connect. It's how I played Star Wars Outlaws also. And I think that's also like $15 or $18. So, you know, just to be honest with everyone, I never buy any of these games because I always just imagine they're not going to be very good. You know, in the case of Dead Space Remake, I did purchase it after playing a bit of it because I was like, oh, this game is actually very, very good. I'm very proud of the quality and I'm a big Dead Space fan. But yeah, Dragon Age Veilguard I didn't buy. I played on EA Play Pro. And so I think they're also probably counting people like me since they're saying engaged with the game. And I imagine people like me probably also lose them a lot of money because, you know, we're not, we're money conscious. So I'm not going to buy the $70 game that I don't think is going to be that good. Even if it's 60, I'm not going to buy it. And then on top of that, I instantly turn off autopay with all of these services. So it's not even like that they're getting me in that EA Play Pro system, like ecosystem, and they get to charge me a few months and I forget about it. I'm way too responsible with my money for that. So I just instantly turn off autoplay. I got that shit for 1 month, 1 month only, and I better beat the game in that month. God damn it. So undoubtedly, you know, they lose a lot of money from people like me. It's pretty interesting though, to see kind of how the mighty have fallen when it comes to Dragon Age. I mean, to go from, you know, I believe it was 2015 where Dragon Age Inquisition won Game of the Year, very universally loved and acclaimed. Dragon Age 2 had a little bit of a, you know, rough reception, but I think over time people have appreciated it more. And then obviously Dragon Age Origins is just basically universally beloved. And now to like see what's happened with Veilguard, it obviously begs the question of what's going to happen with Mass Effect 4, which is, you know, coming, probably coming up pretty soon here. I would assume that we get it in 2026. Just because they did say that they weren't making any DLC for Veilguard. They were going full steam ahead for Mass Effect 4, which also I think was kind of writing on the wall for Veilguard's success, that they weren't doing any DLC in a series that has had a lot of DLC was definitely a little bit weird. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. You know, Mass Effect 1 through 3 is my favorite trilogy of all time for games. Mass Effect 2 is my favorite game of all time. I believe it's the best game ever made. I think Bioware is dead. I think Bioware's been dead for a long time. If you just look at their past titles, you have Anthem. Do I really even need to say anything about Anthem? We have Mass Effect Andromeda. which was obviously terrible. Some people will argue that the combat was good or the multiplayer was good. Brother, that's not why people are playing Mass Effect. They're playing it for the story, and it was doo-doo trash. The characters were doo-doo trash. And then, like, I didn't even finish it. Like, a super Mass Effect fan like me never even finished your game. That's how you know it's rough. And now we have Veilguard. So like their past 3 games have been doo-doo trash. And I don't really think there's any way around it, man. I think that BioWare is dead. I have zero hope for Mass Effect 4. I think if anybody honestly believes that Mass Effect 4 is not going to be just a Veilguard 2.0, I don't know what to tell you. You have way more optimism than me, and boy, oh boy, do I hope your golden heart is not going to be cracked. But unfortunately, it probably will be. And it's really sad, to see the GOATs from all of these, major franchises kind of just leave them. So now these companies are essentially just like skinwalkers, they're parading around the name and the corpse of like this legendary IP. And it has none of the same people that were there to make it legendary in the first place. You don't have your Casey Hudson at BioWare, and you haven't for a really long time. And it shows, man. I mean, I have hope for, I think it's called Exodus. That's a lot of like the OG Mass Effect people left, and they're working on this new IP. I really like the episode of Secret Level for Exodus. It seems like a pretty interesting world, and even though they literally just have mass relays, but it seems pretty interesting. I'm excited to see where that goes. But yeah, I just think BioWare is dead now, and maybe unpopular take, but I think Bethesda is right there with them. I think Bethesda's probably fucked as well. If you judge them accordingly, like by their last titles. And I just think that people are over it, man. I think that the power of like a brand or a company selling a game is pretty long gone now. There's obviously a couple exceptions. You have FromSoft, I think, where people are still like very into FromSoft. If it's a FromSoft game, there's a lot of people that will just buy it regardless. Even though Armored Core like doesn't do as well, but still a lot of people probably got Armored Core, the newest one, just because of the IP. But I think FromSoft can do it. For me, Naughty Dog can do it. I know some people have beef with Naughty Dog after Last of Us 2, but for me, Naughty Dog is the same way. Like, I've never played something of theirs that wasn't at the very least insanely high quality. Like, even though I have my issues with the Last of Us 2 narrative, the quality there is still like exactly what I would expect from Naughty Dog. It's insane. So, that's why I'm excited for their new space game. Whatever the hell it's called. It's some stupid name, but but yeah, I think a lot of these devs now, a lot of these companies, I should say, have lost their original devs, and yeah, they're just no longer the companies that we grew up with, we grew up loving, and it's painfully apparent as we're playing their new releases. So it kind of sucks to see, but I did want to talk about the Veilguard situation because, like I said, was asked so many times on stream, what do I think about the game being a failure? What do I think about the terrible sales of the game? And I repeatedly said, well, we don't have anything official. I will talk about it when it is official, but as of right now, it's kind of just rumors. There's nothing official, so I'll talk about it when it's official. Well, it's official. Apparently 1.5 million people engaged with the game out of 3 million. And I gotta say, I think they're lying about the 3 mil that they were shooting for. And I don't know what the hell 1.5 million engaged means, but I'm gonna go on a wild limb and guess that probably means they only actually sold 5 or 600K copies. And that's rough. you know, here's hoping Mass Effect 4 is better, but I think all of us know that's probably not going to be the case. But thanks for watching. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And I'll see all of you guys in the next video or from Rooney. Bye-bye.